This story kicks off with a boy named Logan, an orphan since his childhood, so his parents pulled a disappearing act before he could even ask for pocket money. His upbringing is taken care of by Mr. Lin, but even the servants in the house looked down on him and couldn't wait for him to disappear like a stain on a new shirt. As Logan grew older, for some unknown reason, Mr. Lin started to insist on marrying his granddaughter, and eventually they got married. This girl looked down on the guy just like everyone else, and in the 3 years after the wedding, she never once let him touch her, nor did she say a single affectionate word to him. A few days ago, her sisters organized a real conspiracy, and the girls pretended as if the guy was harassing them, took a picture of it on their phones, showed it to the right people, and kicked Logan out of the house. You can say their plan worked perfectly, but how to live now, poor young man. The girls even found people who beat Logan in the street, and they did it not only with their fists but also with wooden clubs, which if you hit too hard can break a bone. But that's what triggered the boy's awakening as a warrior, because a huge golden dragon appeared before his eyes, and he was in the middle of the ocean flying over the water. Logan had no idea what was going on or who was standing in front of him, and the dragon said that his apprentice could not live such a miserable life, and he was ashamed that such an apprentice had been born. Could this monster be Logan's father? Then the dragon turns into a strong, pumped-up man who has magical powers, and today Logan will inherit the red liquid of this man and can become as strong as him. The main thing is that the guy should use it correctly and develop in this direction, and the final stage of the transformation is underway. Logan wakes up in the ward, and the first thing he saw was a beautiful lady who saved the guy and brought him to the hospital. On his body was a large number of abrasions, which after waking up began to heal themselves, and since the guy is already clearly better, the girl's mission was accomplished, so she decided to leave the ward. Logan politely asked her name and said he wanted to return the favor for saving her, and this lovely lady's name is Emily. First of all, she was very surprised to see that there wasn't a single injury on the guy's face, and secondly, she did it for her grandfather. The fact is he has a terminal illness and is confined to a wheelchair, and the doctor has given him an ultimatum, so the girl hopes that she can trade her good deeds for a couple extra days of life for him. Since Logan knows a little about medicine, he offers his help and says he can see the patient. Meanwhile, with the grandfather was his personal physician who did nothing but reassure him and also sold his courses of pills, and in general, he was just profiting from a man who was about to pass away. As soon as the guy walked into the room, he immediately said that the patient was definitely not well, and if he wasn't treated properly, he would be in danger. Of course, the doctor who came here just to make money didn't like it and started to challenge everything, saying that he is the best doctor in town and he can't be contradicted. In this case, if something goes wrong, is this businessman ready to take full responsibility? He confidently answered yes, because in case of anything, he can always call any incident an accident without any regrets. Suddenly, right in front of his eyes, his grandfather gets worse, coughing up red liquid. But how could this happen when the doctor said he was fine? Emily started sounding the alarm and asking to call for an ambulance, but it was too late, and Logan was the only hope at this point. Grandpa's body was so exhausted he couldn't hold on any longer, and if the guy manages to save him, then Emily's family will never forget it and will be grateful for the rest of their lives. Applying magic, namely the ability to restore, Logan began to try to save the patient, because if good people are not rewarded, then soon there will be no good people left, so it is necessary to make every effort for a positive outcome. Then, as you might expect, a miracle happened. Grandpa slowly started to come to his senses, and the guy was lying on the floor at this point because he had given away too much energy at once, and he needed just 5 minutes to recover a little bit. Grandpa will never forget that kindness and asked what Logan wanted most, and the guy replied that he didn't need anything because if Emily hadn't saved him, he would have lost his life and couldn't help. So the most important character here is solely the granddaughter, and her good deeds led to such a positive outcome. Emily was very pleased that she was being emphasized so much, and she approached the guy by name and offered absolutely any help. Logan only told her his name once, and the girl remembered it, which shows that the girl is genuinely grateful and always listens attentively to the conversation. Emily also asked how long her grandfather had left to live, and he heard the question and was very optimistic, saying that he would live as long as he had to, not to think about it, but to invite Logan to dinner instead. The guy didn't want to stay here for long because he was looking for any excuse to leave as soon as possible, and at that moment, he gets a message on his phone from a gang of guys who beat him up on the street. They got word that Logan had survived, so they warned him, if you want to live, you have to disappear from this town and never be seen again. Since the guy was starting to get really strong, he didn't know what to say to that, and after Logan took care of everything, he promised to come over and check on his grandfather. Emily wanted to do something to thank him, so she said she'd give the kid a ride, and this old man turned out to be not easy because he even has his own personal security. Since Logan now communicates directly with his granddaughter, the grandfather ordered his workers to check him out completely, and in the meantime, Logan reached his home where he was greeted from the doorstep by his disgruntled wife. Apparently, she had no idea what her husband had just been through, and she thought the guy just took off without warning, but turns out she wasn't in the mood to hear her husband's stories today, so she just asked him to sign the divorce papers if he decided to leave the family. By the way, the wife has already found a worthy replacement for her current husband, so it's time to introduce him. His name is Mr. Young, and he's very famous in his circles. No need for jealousy in this case because Logan never loved this woman, and he was just a servant who fulfills absolutely any whim, so you could say it's a day of celebration. According to his wife, it's an honor for him to serve her, so if you're not satisfied, quickly sign the document and get out of here, and that's exactly what he did. As of today, Logan no longer had anything to do with this family, and the girl didn't like such impertinent behavior, so she said a few affectionate words to her ex-husband, and then together with their new boyfriend, they saw a hottie picking up Logan in his expensive car, and started biting their nails because they couldn't understand how this loser managed to pick up such a girl. Anyway, the old man just called his granddaughter and said he had some business with Logan, and in the meantime the personal bodyguard reported to the old man the operative information he had managed to get. In brief, they managed to find out that the boy was an orphan and he was raised by Mr. Lin and then married to one of his granddaughters, and based on this information, the man realized that Logan could not have any medical education. All these years he had just served the Lin family, and maybe the old man overestimated, but then how did he manage to cure the patient, and was it just luck? Logan asked Emily to take him to a hotel to settle in and do his business, and then he raced to the girl's house to continue his treatment of her grandfather before he left. Emily told him that if he needed anything, he could always count on her, and when the guy was alone, he realized what a mistake he had made. And how could he just cure a man like that, and how could he justify himself? Because you can't just tell everyone that he's the son of the dragon and can heal people. His medical data is really good, and its effectiveness depends on the amount of spiritual power the mage has in his head, and Logan managed to find the book of 10,000 ways, which contains the recipes for making the immortality pill, and it should definitely help. He asked one of the maids to bring him some herbs and a pot to make this miracle potion, and meanwhile the old man consulted with the doctor and tried to find the best treatment option for himself. One of the options was a red fluid transfusion, but because of the patient's advanced age, the doctor made no guarantees that the old man would survive the procedure, and the granddaughter begged him to let Logan come here and let her examine him again. The only thing the old man will regret is not finding a good home for his granddaughter, and then Logan bursts in with a pill he just made. It had a horrible odor that almost made people faint, but it's a traditional pill made of local herbs, and the guy was making it for the first time, but he's sure it'll cure the patient. The doctor looked down at the boy and asked, "Do you really think you are God to create magic pills? It may not look the best, but its effect will not disappoint, and there are no other options in principle, so it would be quite foolish to refuse it." Emily insisted that her grandfather tried it because there was really no other option, and he didn't see how he could swallow something that smelled so bad. The doctor took the pill in his hands and analyzed it, and he confirmed that the pill was made of traditional herbs, so there would be no harm done, and if it can cure the gentleman named Sun, the doctor will apologize to Logan and call him master. Well, since it wouldn't do any harm, Grandpa decided to try it even though he was very afraid, and the doctor wasn't sure if it would help, but the boy didn't give up hope. After taking the pill, Mr. Sun began to feel as if he was enveloped by a light spring breeze, with strength running through his veins, and he began to feel incredible as life began to play with completely different colors. Put it mildly, the doctor was shocked. Emily couldn't believe it, and the old man was happier than ever because he was not only cured but also rejuvenated, and now he could definitely have a transfusion of red liquid to complete the healing process. The doctor tried to ask the guy what the pill was, but no one ever tells him secrets like that, and Mr. Sun called Logan his savior for giving his grandfather life and gave him this whole villa, so from now on it belongs to Logan. Kid tried to say no, but he's not going to get away with it this time, and that's how you get what you've been working for years, because today was more like a dream. The only annoying thing is that the ex-wife who seems to be stalking around seems to be divorced, but they haven't stopped seeing each other, and she called her ex-husband an empty nester for coming on the property. Then standing next to Emily, the guy said he lives here now. And of course the sweet couple didn't believe it at first and started laughing out loud all the way down the street, until a very serious security guard came out of the grounds, because he doesn't like to see any conflicts right under this yard, resolved without his involvement. Emily ordered him to never interact with these people again and to teach them a lesson, and the girl was the first to get hit in the face, and it was a pretty hard blow that even threw her a few meters away. Since the new fiancé knew the guard personally, he decided to ask him what was wrong, and the guard said it was an order from the boss, and it is not negotiable, because the guard gets paid so he should not care who he hits in the area today. Logan was in the role of a chef, feeding his new girlfriend with a lot of different dishes, and according to Emily's reviews, the guy cooks tastier than the best chefs of the city, so the girl could not understand how his ex-wife decided to divorce this man who is just perfect. Logan admitted that he had never actually slept with his wife, and the girl wondered if she had a chance to be the first partner he would sleep with, and apparently they both thought about it because they got very red. I got so excited that his heart started to jump, which could be a sign that he cared about Emily, and the guys decided to get away from this topic and enjoy a delicious lunch which was prepared by the new best chef of this city, according to the girl of course. In any case, she still has time to get to know Logan better, but it seems that she has already started to fall in love. And on the way home, the chauffeur told the girl that this guy did not have a good reputation, and she should not get close to him, because Emily is the eldest granddaughter of the Sue family, a real pearl, and her boyfriend should be appropriate. And this one is not suitable, certainly. For a chauffeur to hear such a thing was offensive, because who is he to talk about it, especially about the man who saved his grandfather? And despite the bad reputation and so on, the girl was sure that by the end of the month, this guy would definitely become famous and rich. 3 days later, the guy was sitting in the middle of the forest trying to perform some magic, but the energy of the mountain he was on wasn't enough to make it work the way it should. Luckily, there's a lot of spirits gathering in the area, so hopefully it won't take long for Logan to perfect it, but still it will not be enough, and he needs to become even stronger as soon as possible because the boy already dreams of finding a legal way to marry Emily. Only now he catches himself thinking that apparently he really fell in love with this girl, but in his head he was thinking that he did not deserve her, and it is very disturbing. Now Logan's biggest challenge is to get to the top and become the man who's worthy of her, and to make sure no one even thinks about questioning that. And meanwhile, his ex-wife's new husband along with his gangster friends have approached the guy's new territory. They were armed with bats and probably each of them has some cold weapons in their pockets, and today they wanted to beat up Logan alone, and they also wanted to talk to Emily, but she is not here. Before the guys start their dirty business, the boy decided to warn them that the original owner of this villa is Mr. Sun, and it is unlikely that the bandits will get away with breaking into the territory of such an important man, and it will be even worse if they beat up a close family friend. Guys really wondered why they had to go to all this trouble, so they decided to ask their boss what they should do, and he ordered Logan to be destroyed and said he'd take full responsibility, and the men heard that and immediately ran into battle. Too bad they didn't listen to the guy because you could say he was saving their lives, since his strength had increased significantly, and with a single slap, the guy got rid of one bandit, and the blow was so powerful that the opponent flew a few dozen meters away. The other bandits started to say they probably wouldn't be able to beat him, so the groom hit them and said they had to fight if they wanted to secure old age. And then Ian got a call on his phone. It was his girlfriend, who said that her grandfather was about to lose his life and needed to go to the hospital immediately, and Logan asked what happened to Mr. Lin, but the groom said that the guy had nothing to do with that family anymore, and no one would tell him anything. Despite all the bullying by Mr. Lin, the savior and the man who raised the guy, Logan decided to try to contact the doctor who took care of the old man and asked him for help. And in order not to waste time, the guy told the thugs to take him to the hospital by car, which they reluctantly agreed to. Meanwhile, the ex-wife was in tears begging the doctor to save her grandfather somehow, and she said she would pay any money. But the problem was not only in them, because this hospital is simply not able to perform an operation of this level. Then Ian came to the doctor and asked him to make the old man last at least another week, which would be enough time to solve everything with the documents and properly rewrite the property. And suddenly Logan walks into the hospital, along with a doctor who has recently become his friend. They asked to use the operating room to treat Mr. Lin's emergency, and the second doctor was very happy to have such a professional, and said he would organize everything. So the sweet couple was told to get out of here because they'd only be in the way. Logan went into surgery with the doctors to help the man who raised him, and the anger of the young was overwhelming, because apparently even the ex-wife was beginning to question whether she made the right choice when she divorced her husband. Meanwhile, Emily and her grandfather were relaxing on the balcony looking at the beautiful views, and Mr. Sun assumed his granddaughter was thinking about Logan, but she tried to deny it. Grandpa said that he had lived a long life and it was not easy to deceive him, so Emily decided to ask him directly how Grandpa would feel about their relationship, and he said that if his granddaughter wants it, he will organize everything for her. He asked her to invite Logan to visit in 3 days and talk about everything, and Grandpa would do anything for his granddaughter as long as Logan could handle the responsibility, and if everything goes well, the girl will publicize the relationship. The man who is not needed by the Lin family will be needed by the Sue family, and in the meantime, good news came from the hospital. The operation was successful, and Mr. Lin will be able to return home tomorrow. Mr. Lin was very grateful for the help, and although the kid grew up in this family, they treated him worse than a dog despite the fact that he did a lot of useful things. Since there was a divorce, no one would allow the guy to give the gentleman a pill, and because of this he had to call a specialized doctor and ask him to make a quality operation, and the doctor asked not to call him officially anymore because he considers Logan his master, and that's not up for discussion, so they're clearly friends now. Then Ian came up to the guys along with his assistants who had brought the guy here, and by the way, it was obvious from their faces that they didn't want to fight. As they say, you remember that's what it is. There was a security guard in the building who saved the day last time, and when Ian saw him, he didn't want to fight either, and the bandit thought he'd be the first to say hello, but he didn't because the man went to Logan first and apparently forgot about Ian once it was over. The guard said he would give Logan a ride home in his car, and Ian was in shock because he couldn't understand what was going on, and he even dropped his cigarette. The thing is, at Emily's behest, the guard had organized a small banquet in the guy's honor and urged him to come, and Logan wanted to refuse since he wasn't really interested, but the guard went to extreme measures. He knelt down and said if Logan doesn't attend the banquet, Emily will fire the guard and never take him to the gate again, so you have to come at least to save the man his job. And well, since the banquet was organized at Emily's request, the guy agreed. He found out the time and address and said he would definitely stop by, and the security guard and all his coworkers were happy to have a job to do, and then promptly handed the guy an invitation. Ian got very demoralized and sent his workers far away, and then he picked up his phone and started calling someone because from the look on his face he was up to no good. The banquet was held at the Palace Hotel, which is the most luxurious 6-star hotel, and the people who live there are the real elite of society, so all the guests were very well dressed. Since Logan doesn't attend such events, he didn't even have anything to wear but a t-shirt and old jeans, and to be honest, he felt very awkward. The first people he met were former classmates, and they had no idea it was a party in Logan's honor, so they treated him like a regular classmate, and the guy refused to dialogue with them, arguing that he had an appointment with someone else. This made the guys laugh, mostly the woman who assumed Logan had come here to apologize to his ex-wife, because apparently she finds it funny to make jokes about people's hurt feelings. Of course, the guy did not tolerate such insults, and replied that for those years that they had not seen each other, the girl had not changed, much except for more wrinkles, and in response to this the classmate began to try to threaten her authority, which is practically non-existent in general. A real quarrel broke out between them, and just a little bit more and it would have come to a fight, but between them stepped another classmate. It was a cute girl of low height in a gorgeous red dress, and in his student years it was the person who cared about Logan more than for himself and never gave him an offense. And by the way, her name is Ruby. The bully wanted to punish Ruby for her courage, so he threatened her that he would do it and no one would say a word, but Logan was a simple man who sees danger and eliminates it, so he gave the upstart a hard punch in the face with his fist so that he would know his place and how to behave. The girls were shocked. It looked really cool and unexpected, at least from Logan. At that moment the guy looked completely calm. He just did what he had to do, no doubt. Ruby was delighted. It was too impulsive of an act, not worth getting into. Any adequate man would say that, but it was definitely worth it. For today they're laughing at one girl, tomorrow at another, so they should be taught a lesson. This lady was obviously upset that her young man got punched in the face, especially by someone like Logan. She said she was going to bury the kid right there and ordered her guards to grab him. The kid's personal bodyguard, his name is James by the way, as soon as he heard the sounds of the fight went straight up to the floor and personally apologized for overpowering his master's danger. Classmates didn't even know what to say about it. They were just in shock, and they began to beg for forgiveness and mercy, but Logan would have the last word. James also heard that someone was going to bury someone here, and to do that they'd have to get rid of the floor first. The girls started begging the guy to forgive her for the sake of their past together, and Logan smiled and said she deserved it, so he wouldn't mind burying her right here. The guy and James went into a separate room with a lot of security, and they gave him a gift from Mr. Chen. Since the guy was not interested in tobacco or alcohol, he only took a credit card and hoped there would be no more gifts. James also announced that the Su family was planning a business party with all the bigwigs in town, which meant that Logan wasn't the only one invited. Unfortunately, the guard had to invite the same Lin family, and now he was worried that he had offended Emily by doing so. Logan didn't mind and said he would try to work it out. James was extremely grateful for this. He gave the guy his whole outlet and hoped that it would be enough as a thank you for his help. Logan pretended that this gift was nothing special, but deep down he was very happy because this outlet can make a lot of money. Deep in the night after the banquet, the guy went outside when suddenly his phone rang. It was Grandpa Lin. He said he wanted to talk to Logan right away without wasting a minute, and the boy went straight to him. Soon he was in the same room with him, holding his hand, and Grandpa admired the young man. Even though he hadn't treated him well when he was a kid, the guy still came to the rescue, and Logan asked him not to say that because if it hadn't been for his grandfather, he probably wouldn't be alive right now. As it turned out, Lin had called him to talk about the past, and it turns out Logan wasn't really an orphan. 20 years ago when the family was fishing by the sea, at that time the young grandfather met a strange man who stood over the water with not a bit of fear in his eyes in the face of warships. During a fierce battle, all the warships were destroyed, and he was like an invincible god of war. After the battle, he entrusted Lin with something, and it was little Logan. The warrior promised to take the newborn as soon as his wounds healed. However, the next 20 years passed like a blink of an eye, and it was because of his blessing that the Lin family took their current position. Grandpa was in tears talking about how the family felt bad for the guy and asked him to have lunch with him just once. The next morning the guy went to the Su family's mansion to see the family, and he is now telling Mr. Sun about the new pills he brought with him. Their main function is to replenish the life force by inflaming the Kai energy in the patient's body, and then a man named Riley walks into the room with 3 bodyguards. He's no ordinary hustler, and he's wondering where Logan learned how to make these pills. The guy introduced himself, and answered that he was somewhere on the second level of Kai purification, with no clan or family. This answer made the master laugh a little, for it was impossible not to be a member of a clan and have such abilities, as they are not taken from the air but recipes are passed down from generation to generation. But this is still a flower. Most of all, Riley was interested in whether the guy's abilities have demonic essence. Emily sensed that she was getting a bad smell and started to stand up for the guy, for in her opinion, a man with demonic essence couldn't cure a person in front of all the witnesses, and such things were just beyond the control of bad people. Riley assured her that there were many ways to do such things, and you could cure a person with firewood, miasmas, and poisonous insects. No one's ever seen the guy practice, so how do you know he's innocent? On one hand, that's the right point of view, but on the other hand, the master also has no evidence to prove otherwise. Riley was clearly tense, so Logan tried to calm him down, but to no avail. In response to this kindness, the master hit the guy and said that only force could judge them. Logan tried his best to refuse the fight, for after all, this master is a friend of Mr. Sun, and how can he look him in the eye after beating up his friends? Riley said if the guy could even touch him, then he would recognize his strength, and in that case the guy had to accept the challenge and unleash his potential a little. The fight lasted just a few seconds. The guy even overdid it a little, and Riley fell to the floor and couldn't move. Logan must have pressed a couple of pain points that can close the body for a certain period of time. Mr. Sun was really excited. He didn't think the kid was that strong, and Emily didn't stay away either as she asked how the guy was feeling and if his arm hurt. The guy scared the hell out of the girl because if he lost this fight, he would have been kicked to the curb, and Emily pinched him for that rash act. Now he was really hurting, but in any case Logan was on his feet, so there was no need to worry so much about it. The girl hoped it would be the same in the future, and the phrase "in the future" caused the guy to ask a few questions as to what it could mean. Emily was embarrassed to answer and said that it just occurred to her. Standing on the balcony, the guy invited one more person to a business meeting, if of course it could be done in principle. Emily was not against it, for it is not difficult for them to add another plate and a spoon to the table, but whether this person is really needed at the business meeting. The girls wanted to know what kind of relationship they had with Logan. The boy hesitated and didn't know what to say, and it was even insulting that he hadn't made up his mind since those days. Well, if there was no clear answer, the girl knows what to do in such cases and how to get an answer to her question in a different way. Making cute eyes, she asked if she was going to be bullied in the future. Would Logan come to her rescue? The guy vowed that as long as the girl was near him, no one would dare touch her, then took her hands and pulled her close to him so that she could feel the seriousness of his intentions. Unfortunately, Mr. Sun came to the balcony and interrupted this romantic moment, and the thing was that Grandpa had gotten a rare medicinal plant for the boyfriend. He couldn't help but tell about it. By the way, Emily was going to the auction today, so she asked Grandpa if she could take the boyfriend with her. He was fine with it, but there's one problem. He needs to be dressed for the event. To solve this problem, the guys quickly moved out to the store, and Emily led the boy to one of the most expensive boutiques in the city. To put it mildly, Logan felt awkward, and he realized that he would not soon be able to buy such things for himself. But if the guy would finally start dressing up a lot, the others would stop looking down on him, so he would have to go to the store as soon as possible. There was a gorgeous white suit that fit Logan perfectly. He wasn't used to such things, but as they say, you get used to good things quickly, and why only before. Emily had not noticed that her lover was a real model, and from so many compliments the guy was even shy. They still looked down on the guy and smiled snidely at him, and they had heard that Emily was going to the auction, so Ian decided to warn her right away that he was going to buy everything there. This information upset the girl a little, but where did he have so much money to say so confidently? Finally, it was time for the auction itself, and the event was held in one of the largest shopping centers of this city. The participants took their seats and were already actively raising the bids for the offered goods, and as expected, Ian named the most huge sums in the room while his wife just praised him for it. The highest price he named was 1.5 million, but when everyone fell silent because they had the opportunity to compete, Emily quoted 3 times that amount. 5 million. The whole room was speechless, and after counting to 3, the announcer banged the gavel on the table and congratulated girl number 8 on her ownership of the eternal love ring. Now the auction took a 15-minute break. Everyone stood around and applauded the young couple. Only the haters stood back and bit their nails. Eventually, the ex-wife couldn't take it anymore and started pointing her finger in Logan's direction. She wanted to transfer that ring for her wedding, and Emily ruthlessly denied her that opportunity. The guy smiled and said, "You can't buy a new ring, for if the person is used, the ring must be the same." For some reason, Ian decided to be a suck-up. He reassured his wife and said that if he had known in advance, he would have given it right away, as apparently a lot of women like this ring. Meanwhile, for the girl, they brought her a new ring for 5 million, by the way, and who said that Emily really likes this ring. In fact, the girl thinks that such a couple as Ian and this weak-minded woman do not deserve such a ring, and it was bought only out of principle not to give it to other hands. In general, rings with this design the girl does not sympathize with, so right in front of her current boyfriend's ex-wife, she throws the ring in a small body of water, and if someone needs it badly, that person can go and get it. To put it mildly, it was a shock. So she's the kind of person who can throw away a $5 million ring so easily. In the backdrop of this event, Ian promised his wife to buy the last lot of the auction for her. Logan really felt sorry for the ring that Emily had thrown away, and she in turn was pleased, for there were plenty of rings like it, and moreover it was necessary to do it. A person trying to humiliate another person would be humiliated first. In short, it was just sweet revenge. Meanwhile, the last item of this auction was shown on stage, and on the mannequin hung a simply beautiful necklace with a huge diamond. Every woman dreams of such a necklace, but not everyone can buy it. Logan considered it a matter of honor to buy it for his beloved, so he snatched the number in his hands and began to raise the rates. Meanwhile, the cost reached already 3.5 million, and in order not to say too many words, the guy decides to raise the price immediately to 5. In the hall at once, everyone quieted down, and people did not understand what kind of man is ready to lay out such a sum. This time Ian wasn't going to give in, and he didn't understand why Logan was the one holding the number and not his girlfriend. The next price that was offered was 5.5 million, and Ian's face clearly lost its joy as apparently he realized he couldn't win. The guy has a gift of 10 million on it plus 35 million in profits from the shopping street, so even if he spends more than half the money to buy this jewelry, there's still money left over. It's a win-win. Next price is 6 million, and I couldn't believe Logan was still pulling it off. So let's see what kind of figure it comes to. To any increase in price, Logan responded instantly with the same, and each increase was always in the neighborhood of 500,000. Toward the end, when the amount became too large, Ian began to raise each bet by 10,000, such shameful figures that should be ashamed to bring into such an establishment. But in desperation, he forgot about it. To keep it all going, Logan had to make one of the toughest decisions of his life. From a bid of 8 million, he raised it to 20 million. The guy gets ownership of a piece of jewelry called a crystal kiss. After the auction, the youngsters ran out of the room because people started literally chasing them. They got into the car and finally had a moment to be alone. Logan had really managed to surprise a lot of people with just one wave of his hand, and he had a big future. But the guy never got cocky, and he said it was all thanks to Emily. And now the solemn moment, the process of putting the jewelry on the beloved woman, and she of course happily agreed. You could say it fit her perfectly, and from the outside it may seem that Logan is more happy than the girl, but it is not so. For in fact she is overwhelmed with great happiness which she's just shy to show at such a crucial moment. Logan decided to ask Emily if she would marry him if he could get back on his feet in the future, and the girl took his hand and said when true love is born between people, they don't care about each other's status. Besides, Emily is sure that in the near future the guy is going to grow incredibly in all plans. While Logan was trying to propose to his new girlfriend, his ex-wife was swimming in a body of water and trying to find the ring Emily threw away, and how quickly things changed. Another accident happened at a construction site, and it would seem that this place is surrounded by mountains and rivers that promise riches, so isn't that a good sign? Everything could be written off as an accident, but a worker falling from scaffolding sounds impossible, for hundreds of screws could have come loose at the same time. Now there are hardly any people on the site, some are sick, some have family problems, and there are fewer and fewer of them, for what's the job worth when you might fall to your death? When Logan came to the site, he said something else serious had happened, and James was so happy to see him. The guy suggested maybe it's the mountains and the rivers, as fog comes down from the mountains and forms moisture accumulation, and no matter how hard you try to fight it, it's almost impossible to fix. But what do we do now? Maybe we should stop work until the problem is solved. Logan said there's no need to suspend anything yet, for the problem is that if you fix it, even after repairing it, the problems are bound to continue. It's a vicious circle. Even a master like Jacob doesn't have the power to help in this situation, and Logan just appeared out of nowhere and started handing out instructions, which seemed a little strange to the master. Jacob agreed to do as the boy suggested, but if it didn't work out he had to apologize to the master, so they agreed to let time judge them. A worker was invited to the site, given a shovel in his hands, and told to dig down at a certain spot. The hole had already reached a depth of 5 meters, but nothing could be found, and James began to doubt the whole thing, for if he offended the foreman he wouldn't find another one like, and maybe he had called Logan for nothing after all. Then suddenly the worker in the pit shouted that he had found something, and it was some kind of magic box, and inside it lay a blade of a rather unconventional shape, the kind, mind you, that you can't just buy in a store. Guys couldn't believe their eyes, and this object that was found brings real trouble to those who are near it. From now on you can say for sure this construction site is cursed, and there will absolutely always be some kind of action going on here. What to do now in this situation when a huge amount of money has been invested in this project, and the houses are almost finished? Jacob recognized that there was nothing he could do to help the situation, but maybe the guy knows what to do. Logan looked at the box and said he would take it back to his house to avoid any more problems. James was very grateful, for if it worked out he would do anything for the guy, and you could say it was another great opportunity to make money and raise his status. Jacob finally realized that Logan wasn't a normal person, so he wondered where he got his powers at such a young age. The boy replied that he had no family or clan, so he wasn't going to talk about it. Unbelievable, and why Jacob hadn't heard of him before. It was decided to take this box to the mountains where the guy usually meditates, and there he was able to remember that he felt a similar energy from Mr. Sun. So apparently someone is targeting their family and wants to harm them, wondering just who it needs. Logan sits down in his favorite pose for energy, but this time he's going to use it to destroy the enchanted object. By the way, there's an important meeting tomorrow, and Logan refuses to believe he won't be able to catch the culprit by then. It's the next day, and it's still 4 hours away from the start of the event, but you can already see many famous faces. The event itself will be held in the garden, and the final preparations have been completed. The Lin family also came to this big event, and they have heard that it's all for the sake of one man who will appear here very soon, and they already can't wait to find out who it is. As Logan appears on the grounds, his ex-wife notices him immediately and can't understand how this loser managed to get to such an event. The girl assumed that the guy had used her family's name to get here, and Logan smiled and said that the family name didn't mean anything at this party. Of course, that made her angry, and she even complained to the guard that Logan had used her name, but because the guards were smart, they grabbed the woman by the arms and carried her off the premises. This was done because the ex-wife broke 2 rules. First, she made a big fuss, and second, she slandered a guest, which is strictly forbidden in these parts. Then Emily came on stage and made a statement to everyone. Logan is the guest of honor at tonight's event, and anyone who disagrees is fired. Now Ian realized Logan was the guest of honor everyone was talking about, and Emily invited him to the stage and once again publicly introduced the man. The guests were shocked to say the least, for after all this guy is a common swindler, so how can such a queen have anything to do with it? The guests of honor began to demand a word from the guy as to why he just stood there silent, and Logan immediately picked up the microphone and began his speech. He may not look worthy of Emily right now, but one day everyone standing here will change their minds. It was a very confident speech, and the guests even started clapping and saying nice things about the guy. He didn't really expect to be on stage tonight, and he didn't prepare for it, but despite that he managed to pull it off perfectly. As it turned out, the person who asked for the guy's speech was a close friend and business partner of Mr. Sun, and his name is Oliver. Since their cooperation is unavoidable, today will be the perfect opportunity to get to know each other better. Mr. Oliver sells building materials in the city, and looking at this businessman, Logan noticed something strange. On Oliver's hand was a bracelet that radiated negative energy and brought people only grief and suffering. With all due respect, the guy asked to remove it, for he has a very important task to do. He has to explain that people who have lost their lives do not need money anymore, and the living should not come into contact with such bracelets. If Oliver continues to wear it, he or anyone in his family could suffer greatly. Of course, such a high-ranking man would not believe the words of a common swindler, but rather his son who gave him the bracelet. And Oliver reacted to the kindness and care with only stupid anger, and immediately called his guard to deal with Logan. So help people, it's the same as usual, and the ambulance immediately went to the battlefield to do his job beforehand. Oliver asked Mr. Sun not to hold a grudge, and the girl did not want to interfere in this conflict because she already put the guy in an uncomfortable position, and he is perfectly able to get out of such situations. But if he doesn't succeed this time, then he won't be able to get a foothold in this city. In any case, the girl would believe in him the most, and until the very end. Meanwhile, the fight started, and Logan easily blocked the first blow of his opponent and made a strong fist right in his nose, and his opponent flew back with great speed. Now Oliver realized that Logan is not quite an ordinary guy, as it may seem at first glance, so he clearly panicked. The bandit decided to use magic to win the fight, and he still doesn't know that the guy has similar abilities. The first skill he decided to use was the combat energy punch, which unleashes a powerful energy flow in all directions. The bandit seemed to be at about the 2nd or 3rd level of Kai purification, which was about the same level as Logan, but that was okay. The guy was confident that he would be able to handle this opponent. When the bandit realized that their forces were almost equal, he decided to act to the fullest. The second ability he possessed was to disappear in his energy for a certain period of time, and the bandit could use invisibility. This time he did everything too trivial and attacked from the back, but Logan was just waiting for an attack from wherever, so he was fully prepared to respond in the same way. They started a so-called tug-of-war, whose blow was stronger than the one that would stand, and Logan was a little weaker this time, so he fell to his knees. The bandit decided to take advantage of this moment, charged his leg with magic, jumped into the air, and prepared to deliver the strongest decisive blow. The blow was very powerful indeed, and after it, a huge crater appeared on the battlefield, for if the bandit managed to hit the guy with his foot, there was little chance to survive. Emily held onto the pendant the guy had given her and only hoped for the best outcome. Judging by the bandit's smile, for some reason he was sure that Logan was no longer alive, but before he smiled, he had to be sure. Suddenly, a hand appears out of the thick smoke and moves towards the mercenary, apparently not as good as one might think, and the guy appeared to be alive and overwhelmed by a great deal of anger. It was time to strike back, and Logan grabbed both his hands, twisted them together, and kicked the thug straight upward with a hard kick, and then he was in for a not-so-gentle landing of body against hard asphalt. It was an unqualified victory, and the mercenary couldn't even move, but he said he recognized his defeat. This guy probably had more fractures than the others, and he would have to spend eternity in more. Mr. Sun was very happy about this victory. He didn't expect the guy to be so good at all, and Emily in turn was happy that her young man wasn't hurt despite the guy's extensive experience. Oliver still wasn't convinced the bracelet could hurt his family, but Logan didn't push it and just gave a fair warning, since the guy's words weren't about his family anyway. So Oliver proposed a bet. If nothing bad happens in 3 days, Logan gets on his knees and apologizes in front of the whole town, but if something does happen, Oliver does the kneeling instead. Logan agreed to the deal. Meanwhile, some shady characters were watching him from the bushes, and they clearly didn't have good intentions. Somehow they found out Logan was at the 3rd stage of Kai purification, which wasn't too scary for them, so they started plotting an assassination attempt. The evening arrived, the party was in full swing with people dancing and drinking, and then the guy's ex-wife showed up again, alone and on a mission. Grandfather had sent a gift for Logan, and the girl brought it since he couldn't come himself because he was still physically weak. He didn't want to seem rude to the Sun family, so he prepared this small gift, and Logan said he accepted it, then told his ex-wife she could leave. I wondered what was inside, and the first thing I spotted was an envelope with the words "To my dear son" written on it. There was also a dragon keychain, which raised a big question mark in my head. Logan had a pretty weird reaction to all this. So did Grandpa write a letter, and what did it say? Emily grabbed his hand and said not to open it here with so many strangers around, and that it was better to do it later. Logan agreed, so they decided to read it after the party ended. When they got back to the house, Emily showed him a secret room where they could go and read privately so no one would see anything. The girl was being so cautious that even Logan started feeling slightly nervous. But come on, it was just a letter, right? Finally, it was time to read it. In his letter, Lin told the boy not to go to the capital or try to find his mother. No matter how much he wanted to, he had to control himself. The main thing to remember was that he had a special power while his mom was a normal person named Mia. The future looked blurry, but he had to remember that he was the guardian of the dragon. The whole text was pretty confusing, and now there was the question of how to measure that power. It seemed this world wasn't as simple as Logan had imagined, and he still had way too much to learn. To keep his mind busy, he decided not to stay inside too long but to go back to the party with his beloved, who had been waiting for him for a while now. Then suddenly, right in the middle of the banquet, some unknown guy ran in shouting that there was trouble because something had happened at Oliver's house. As soon as Mr. Oliver entered his home, his wife went crazy and started swinging a kitchen knife around. This guy had managed to escape and call for help, but who could go there now and what could anyone even do? Logan said he would go, because even if he couldn't fix it, he should at least see what was happening since he had warned earlier that the bracelet was dangerous and needed to come off immediately. Emily grabbed his hand, smiled, and told him not to worry since everything would be fine. Logan smiled back and said that next to a woman like her, he wasn't afraid of anything in this world, then immediately hit the road to get to Oliver's house as fast as possible. Meanwhile, inside the house, things had calmed down a bit, and the guys had chained the crazy woman to a column. This method would work for a while, but not forever. But hey, Oliver had already called in a specialist. Well, time to face the facts. Apparently Logan was right about the bracelet. As it turned out, Oliver wasn't exactly thrilled that Logan was the one who came to the rescue, because the bracelet was still pumping out that negative energy that drove people insane, and if it wasn't removed now, it would be too late. Then his precious son walked into the hall and started defending his gift, saying he had brought it from the temple, and asking how could such things just be thrown away. This temple was hundreds of kilometers away, so would someone that far really cause harm on purpose? Logan looked at the son and demanded the truth about where he got the bracelet. Since there was no clear answer, Logan decided to leave, but he warned that when these people came asking for help later, he would remind them of everything. Oliver was sure everything would be fine after the boy left, but he was dead wrong, along with his son. Just then Jacob walked in, having been called to examine the victim as quickly as possible and try to treat her. Oliver was definitely shocked when the master greeted Logan by name, since they had no idea those two knew each other. Jacob figured Logan couldn't handle the situation, so he immediately asked how bad it was, and because Logan wasn't allowed to act, Jacob said he would try to go it alone. But as soon as he tried to get close, the frantic woman tore right through the chains holding her, because the bracelet was making her stronger by the minute in a process that could continue forever if nothing stopped it. Jacob said someone had possessed the woman, and his skills were useless here. Oliver got furious and wanted to beat up the master, because if anything happened to his wife, he would never forgive a specialist who couldn't help. Jacob made it clear that Logan was far stronger than him, so Oliver would have to ask Logan for help, and everything would work out since there were no other options left. Oliver went to ask Logan for help, and the guy immediately reminded him about the promise to kneel if something bad happened. Oliver thought that punishment was too harsh, so he offered to settle things with money, say 50 million. That was a seriously impressive amount, but what happens when the cash runs out, you have to keep things in perspective. Looking around, Logan spotted many beautiful shelves packed with stuff worth way more than 50 million. It wasn't that helping was hard for him. It was just that he would have to burn a lot of power that would take time to recover. So Oliver offered up the entire contents of those shelves if Logan could solve the problem. That was an offer too good to refuse, so Logan agreed without overthinking it. Now it was time for Oliver to do the most important part, which was removing the bracelet. Logan started surrounding it with his energy, canceling out the negative power that had soaked the woman from head to toe, and then the bracelet was destroyed. At that moment, the curse completely vanished from the girl, though she was extremely weak and probably needed a real doctor to get back to normal. Now here's the interesting part. Where did the son who gave his father this miracle bracelet go? He was already on his knees calling himself a pathetic wretch and begging for forgiveness in front of everyone, but apparently his intense fear made him try to run away from his own home. This time the personal bodyguard did his job perfectly and caught the little escape artist. It wouldn't be convenient to do interrogations there, so Logan had the boy taken to his own house, and they did just that. In the dead of night, the kid was brought to Logan's villa, where he got roughed up a little to make him more willing to share some valuable info. From that moment on, the bodyguard who went by Jack said he would follow Logan everywhere and didn't even need a paycheck, just some food to survive. Man, how fast things can change. Anyway, this son of a rich guy had met a man at the temple a month ago who claimed the bracelet would protect the whole family for an entire year, and the guy accepted it without once thinking that free cheese only comes in a mousetrap. This all happened at the best temple in the country too, so who would have guessed they had such shady people there? Normally, the boy doesn't accept gifts like that from just anyone, since his family does business with the guy who gave the bracelet, but he barely knew him. He said the bracelet had belonged to his older brother who also wore it, and he gave it away purely for a good cause. After a lot of questioning, he finally revealed where to find an expert. Xing Fu, one of the biggest clans in the city. Even though they work with dark energy, tons of people go to them for help, so knowing their methods, the guys still went to ask for assistance. Yes, it's true, maybe stupid, but it's not every day someone offers you that kind of help, and who cares what kind of energy they use if the result is the same. The kid never imagined it could turn out like this. Logan was convinced for the millionth time that he would never understand rich people, because they clearly live on a whole different planet. Logan asked Jack to take the poor guy home. At first glance, this clan seemed to specialize in luring rich people into their traps, but if you think about it, isn't the Sun family their real target? Good thing Logan took the initiative that night, because if someone else had gone, nobody would have found out any of this information. Given the discovery at the construction site, Logan would never believe they weren't connected, and he was certain the Sun family was in their crosshair. As for suspects, you have to start with the Xening clan, a really powerful group that specializes in curses. Their elder sits at the top of his spiritual game, and their methods always deliver. This clan also has deep ties to the local bureaucracy and stands behind a lot of the recent incidents. So you could say the clan is just someone else's tool, and we need to take them down to find out who's really pulling the strings and whose name they're hiding. There's just one tiny problem. Logan isn't strong enough yet to pull off something this big. But that's okay, because with all those herbs, he would make serious progress by nightfall. The herbs looked decent, but their quality was questionable and not very useful. By morning, though, the guy had already hit the 6th level of Kai purification. Jack woke up early and had time to clean the house, and he was also told to pass along a message that Logan had been invited to lunch at Mr. Sun's house at noon. Since the bodyguard had been behaving really well, Logan personally checked in on his health, asking if he was eating and where he had slept. The food was fine, but the guard had slept outside, which just wasn't right. There were plenty of empty rooms in the house, so he could easily pick one and sleep there without getting sick. Plus, Logan promised to teach him some exercises that would make his muscles ache way less. The guard was incredibly grateful for the accommodations, and since it was nearly lunchtime, Logan got in his car and drove to Mr. Sun's place. They usually just called him by name, but today felt too formal, so something had to be up. Logan was greeted by Emily and some random guy standing next to her, and the first thing out of that guy's mouth was, "I'll never believe a ragamuffin like you saved Mr. Sun." Rude much for a first meeting. The most important thing in treating a patient is quality ingredients, which this guy apparently had plenty of, and today he brought the old man a Tiantian snow lotus, a plant that can literally give a man his life back. I wondered what all the fuss was about, but Logan, not wanting to lose face, called the lotus a piece of rotten trash and pulled out his spiritual perfection pill from his pocket, which he had worked on all night to significantly boost spiritual power. The show-off thought about it for a second, then called the pill a regular candy sold at the local school. They got into a huge fight, slinging nasty words at each other, and from the outside it looked like two little kids brawling in a sandbox. Then this upstart grabbed Emily's hand and called himself the future son-in-law of the Sun family. In his opinion, Logan saving Mr. Sun didn't make him the top candidate. He also bragged about being super rich because both partners should come from good families so they never have money problems. Here we go again. Rich people only talk about money like they've forgotten what being human even means. Can they seriously not think about anything else? What's the point of a fancy bank account if the couple doesn't even love each other? Besides, the future belongs to talent and strength, not cash. The guy got so angry at Logan's words that he wanted to throw punches, but Logan didn't even flinch, and this rich brat broke his own arm on Logan's body, ending the fight right there. Even the bodyguards looked shocked. So the first part of this whole mess ended with a conflict between Logan and some rich kid named William, all because this stranger pretended to be Emily's boyfriend and announced it to the whole house. Of course, Logan wasn't happy about that and tried to verbally slap some sense into the daddy's boy, but the guy's IQ was below room temperature and his brain couldn't handle any meaningful conversation. With nothing left to say, the kid attacked Logan to settle things with his fists, but on his first punch he broke his hand on Logan's body, and even though the fight lasted 1 second, it promised future trouble for Logan. Mr. Sun was really worried because this kid could bring a ton of problems, since his father was the biggest industrialist around, and even local businesses fought for his support. Logan had stirred up a hornet's nest, but he kept his confidence and finally decided to share what had been happening lately. He had dug up a cursed knife at a construction site a few days ago, just like Oliver's bracelet, and at first they thought it was a coincidence, but then it became clear that only the Sun family was being targeted. When Logan first met Mr. Sun, he felt the same energy coming from him that was on those cursed objects, but so far he couldn't figure out who was behind all of it. The guy's reaction to this story was pretty strange. He just laughed it off, saying no one in a small town would dare attack such a powerful family, and Emily claimed she knew who was really responsible. According to her, even Logan couldn't break the curse, and the fallout from this conflict would be enormous, so was there really no solution? The guys said there was one way, but the time wasn't right yet. For some reason, the Sun family always spoke in riddles, forcing Logan to constantly ask what all those fancy terms meant. Then Emily picked up a cup that showed the reflection of some building Logan had heard of, but didn't know much about. The Sun family used to live there as the most respected family in the capital, but unfortunately, Emily and her grandfather got kicked out, and 2 years later they had to start over in a small town called Banning from the very bottom. They gradually climbed back to their current position, but for every strong person, there's always someone stronger, and eventually they met their first enemy in this county. Still, after all the hardships they endured, their current life felt like a true blessing. Logan couldn't even imagine what horrible thing had been done to them, but he promised to help Mr. Sun reclaim everything they had lost, with a gaze so determined you could tell he wanted to destroy their abusers completely. Emily felt the same way, that one day she would make those people feel the exact pain and humiliation she had suffered, but it was still too early. Logan needed to get back on his feet first and handle the other family's business. The guy raised his hand and declared that in 3 years, the Sun family would regain their former glory, and the capital would kneel at their feet. Even Emily was shocked by that bold statement. Then they asked if he could really handle all these problems alone, and he didn't just say yes but swore that everything would be back to normal within that time frame. Now that's a good son-in-law right there. Everyone should have a kid like, and Mr. Sun was probably over the moon. Meanwhile, William had already made it home and was whining to his father Charlie, claiming he hadn't done anything wrong, but Logan just jumped him and beat him up. There were rumors going around that this guy had nearly killed someone, and William worried that maybe the same thing would happen to him soon. Judging by the father's reaction, this wasn't the first time his son claimed to be innocent, so the real question was, if this guy beats everyone up so badly, why was William almost unharmed? Still, the father lived by the rule that no one had the right to lay a hand on his son except himself, no matter what the kid did. First, this was a great chance to teach the Sun family a lesson, since Charlie clearly disliked them for some reason. Plus, his son had always wanted to get with Emily. If everything went according to plan, the boy's dream would come true soon. Just 5 minutes later, the brash grandfather showed up outside the Sun family home, bursting in without an invitation or request and ignoring all the staff begging him not to. When he entered the hall, he got upset that nobody wanted to greet him. The first person he met was Logan, and somehow he figured out this was the young man who had beaten his son William, so he caused a scene right in front of Mr. Sun. What's wrong with a little lesson being taught, right? On the outside, Logan looked super confident, but inside he felt like a little kid who couldn't believe he was being rude to such an important man. Of course, Charlie found this attitude completely unacceptable, so he swore to teach both the boy and his whole family a serious lesson. This old grandfather introduced himself as a member of the most powerful family in town and called his son an enviable groom, saying it would be a blessing for the Sun family to be tied to people like them. Those words only added fuel to the fire inside Logan. Then Charlie gave one last chance for the guy to get on his knees and admit his mistakes, promising that if his apology was sincere, the old grandfather would allow his son to marry Emily and let Logan stay in town. But if no apology came, then the entire Sun family would spend the rest of their lives in wheelchair. Logan got tired of listening to this nonsense and used a little magic to slap Charlie on the head, the lightest blow possible, yet the grandfather screamed like he had never screamed before. The main purpose of that magical hit wasn't physical damage but something far more interesting. If you always look down on everyone, sooner or later, you'll meet someone who hits back and makes you pay for that piggy attitude. Nobody in this town had ever dared to hit Charlie like that before, and usually it never even got that far because people lost their lives first, so now anything could be expected from him. Logan was overjoyed that this unwanted guest was finally leaving, Mr. Sun got worried about what to do with this troublemaker who had so many connections and could basically get away with anything. The guy admitted he had used a special spell on the body that was totally harmless, but on the mind, not so much. In about 3 days, this specimen would come crawling back begging for mercy. First, he would need to be sent to Chinchin, a city with a huge medicinal drug market, which would be perfect for Logan to stock up on materials to boost his strength and save the Sun family from future problems. That same day, Logan and his bodyguard headed to the bus station to travel to the middle city and handle some business. To put it mildly, Jack was shocked that his boss, with all this status, didn't even have his own car and wasn't it time to buy one. Logan replied that Jack was thinking about the wrong things, since there was nothing wrong with public transportation. It was low carbon and eco-friendly, and you have to take care of the planet after all. Eventually, they got on the bus, squeezed from all sides and terribly hot, and Logan started thinking that maybe caring about comfort wasn't such a bad idea. When they arrived, the guys stepped outside and couldn't even breathe the fresh air because one passenger had been blowing gas the whole ride, driving everyone on the bus absolutely crazy. The bodyguard said he would pay for a car on the way back, and since Logan hated this trip too, he decided he would definitely buy a car in the near future. Suddenly, Ruby appeared on the horizon completely by chance, and today she was again wearing her gorgeous red skirt. What an unexpected meeting. Her last company wasn't very good, so she got fired, and the previous boss was a real idiot who had just been transferred there and made team leader, then made her life miserable every single day without letting her do her actual job, and she got canned for it. Logan even wanted to help her get rid of that jerk, but Ruby said she didn't need anything because she had already moved on, and her sister Sophie was starting a new company here and needed an assistant. So here was her new job, though she still had to interview for it. The boys of course asked her again out of politeness, but Ruby flat out refused any help and instead offered to give them a ride anywhere they needed by car. Then suddenly Sophie herself appeared on the horizon, a gorgeous brunette with curves that turned heads. At first glance, she clearly didn't approve of who Ruby was hanging out with, because Logan's appearance left a lot to be desired, but the girl didn't get flustered and painted the guy in the best light since he had once helped her out big time. Then Noah stepped out of the car. Sophie's boyfriend Noah stepped out of the car first, and he mentioned that he had heard about a guy named Logan, who is now a household name in town and the future son-in-law of the Sun family. Sophie had heard of him too, but why would a guy connected to the Sun family take the bus and shop at a market? It just didn't add up. Since there was no more time to figure out who was who, the sisters simply said there were bags in the car to protect the interior, put them on the floor, and then they could sit down. Plus, it was forbidden to make any attempt to use Noah for their own purposes. On the way, the guys stopped at a restaurant for a snack, and Sophie started ordering way too much food as usual, so Logan asked her to stop because they probably couldn't even finish what was already on the table. The girl said not to upset her since she just wanted to treat her guests to something worthwhile, and she told them to take it easy and eat faster. She really was quite a character. Good thing Ruby wasn't like that at all. Since it was a good opportunity, Sophie brought her younger sister along to a contract signing today to get familiar with the work and also meet the director, Mr. Dillon, because everyone talked about him as a truly terrible man for what he did to young girls, and he should have been in jail a long time ago. Yes, unfortunately it was true, but as practice showed, you couldn't avoid such people in this world because there were too many of them, and if you didn't learn to fight back now, something worse would happen one day. By the way, the D family was also involved in this business, and they didn't have the best reputation either, and it turned out Logan already knew that family. To be on the safe side, the guy suggested the girls go together for protection in case of trouble, not him but Jack, because nobody would dare act inappropriately around such a big guy. The catch was that outsiders weren't allowed in the office directly, but if something went wrong, the girls would send a distress signal. In just 30 minutes, the girls were already in the office, and Dylan reread all the documentation but still wasn't ready to cooperate with a small business yet. Sophie understood all the difficulties, but she would be honored to cooperate with this company on any terms from their side. But Dylan suspiciously quickly set the documents aside and turned his attention to Ruby, who clearly interested him more than the business. As it turned out, this director had his own special methods of interviewing young girls, inviting them onto his lap, and then asking various questions not always related to work. Sophie immediately realized things were getting heated and stood up for her sister, saying she had never heard of any contract being signed on anyone's lap. Dylan couldn't tolerate such insolence, grabbed the girl by the hand, and forcibly pulled her toward him, with his only argument being that running a business was complicated, though why he said that was unclear. Most importantly, the director seemed to be paying with this girl for this, and they needed to talk alone. Sophie tried to stay as calm as possible and called Logan without anyone noticing, and she succeeded because the guys immediately recognized the distress signal and rushed to the office, with Jack probably having been most eager for that call. At first they put on cheerful faces as if they came with good intentions so as not to frighten the victim too much, but the fact that two strange men had entered the room definitely raised alarms. The guy walked up to this lover of young women and shook his hand, but he squeezed so hard that the grown man shrieked like a little child. After that friendly handshake, Dylan agreed to sign the contract and organize everything in the near future. So since all the issues were resolved, the guys quickly packed up, left the office, and went on with their business. The director decided not to waste any time and texted the D family that a guy named Logan had just been at his place. Meanwhile, Charlie was at home literally losing his mind from the special spell Logan had cast, and the doctors had already examined the patient 3 times with all results showing he was fine. Then what hit William? Maybe it was Logan's doing, because Charlie itched terribly all over but couldn't even imagine that this guy had such powers. Yet there couldn't be any other explanation, because if the doctors said he was fine, it had to be magic. It was decided to go to the Sun family immediately before Charlie completely fell apart. The gentleman was very surprised when indeed such an important man of the town came crawling under his door, knelt down, and began begging for help and mercy. Mr. Sun just laughed and said he couldn't help because he hadn't cast that spell. Charlie started calling himself guilty and asking for Logan's number to contact him, and at this point no one had the power to help Charlie carry the burden of his mistakes. The only thing Mr. Sun knew was that Logan was now in Chinchin, so in tears the half-dead man ordered his workers to move immediately, and Charlie also picked up his cell phone and saw Logan's exact location, because Dylan kept sending him updates. In the meantime, they were trying to keep the guy in the office as long as possible so Charlie could meet him there. Logan was seated in the main office at the director's desk, and they asked if he was cold or hot and whether to bring food, generally treating him like a king. With the snap of a finger, food was brought into the office. A large number of bodyguards were involved who today played the role of waiters. Then he was taken to the center of the room, flanked by workers carrying food, while 2 men behind him constantly waved fans to keep the room cool. Dylan was like an errand boy doing absolutely everything Logan wanted, but then the guy said to drop the politeness and suggested they all eat together. Finally, Charlie arrived at the office, the man Dylan had been waiting so eagerly for, but now he stepped out of character and started insulting Logan and threatening him with violence, not yet realizing what a fatal mistake he was making. Maybe pretty soon he would get back on his feet and behave himself. But at the moment, he was trying to insult Logan as much as possible while digging himself into a deeper and deeper hole. Charlie entered the office with no attitude at all, but rather with a gift and a sincere apology for everything he had done, because at that moment, he was ready to do anything to save himself. This outcome threw Dylan into quiet horror, and he just didn't know where to go or what to say, so just like his boss, he began begging for mercy. To resolve this situation peacefully, they needed to immediately restore the contract they had just torn up and resign it, so the guys kindly agreed. And in that case, they shouldn't worry anymore because it was just a small lesson, and Logan sincerely hoped it wouldn't happen again. Charlie was finally back to normal with his body no longer aching or itching, and his joy was unbounded. So for this, he gave Logan presents and promised to send even more generous gifts once he got home. Probably no one had seen Mr. Charlie so sincere and joyful in the last few decades, and that's what the right punishment could do to people. Finally, the horror was over and Logan could breathe easy. Sophie was thrilled and hadn't thought the guy could pull that off. And from now on, if Logan needed anything, he could turn to Sophie anytime. But there was one thing he couldn't do, which was to take her sister as an employee. The guy laughed because he hadn't even thought of such a thing. But this kind of overparenting sometimes hurt Ruby, and she felt she would never be able to make any big decisions on her own. Now that all the questions were closed, Sophie offered to give the guy a ride wherever he needed to go. At the moment, Logan was interested in a place where he could buy medicinal materials, since this city had the most advanced medical system in the world, and anything could be purchased. In a place that sells drugs, the security system was stricter than at an airport, with even staff checking documents, and there was a huge number of high-quality products, so in short you could find anything you wanted. Noah had always wondered why his beloved forbade him to buy any herbal medicine, and the thing was that she didn't believe in traditional medicine, although that sounded strange, and if Noah bought anything there, he might never come home again. Meanwhile, the boys had arrived at the place and saw that it was truly huge, with at least a couple hundred, if not thousands of people here, and of course this place could proudly be called the best in the country. Then suddenly the people around them just started freaking out, and Noah was among them, all admiring a girl named Grace. For a moment you could assume Logan was from another planet because only there had nobody heard of this person yet. But actually, the guy just wasn't interested in the entertainment industry, so he didn't know her. Grace was a very famous singer who debuted at 18 and gained popularity at 20, now at her peak with sold-out shows, tickets almost impossible to get, and she had no scandals at all. The reason for her popularity was her incredible vocals, but there was one area where she wasn't so lucky. Her grandfather was seriously ill and didn't have long to live, so they came here willing to pay any price for medicinal herbs. Logan would probably go home empty-handed because this lady was buying up everything she could get her hands on. Since the goods here were very valuable, they were sold by auction, which made it hard for the average person to buy, and if you didn't have a lot of money, you probably couldn't even touch these goods. At this moment, there was a high-quality snow ginseng harvested in the western region with strong medicinal properties, and the starting price was $2 million. The quality was really good, but so far it wasn't what Logan needed. The singer placed an even higher bid, meaning it was a long way from the finals, and then the host announced the next lot, called the Poor Family Heirloom, a miraculous item with a starting price of 10 million. The people in the hall were, to put it mildly, shocked by such a high starting price and started thinking they were being taken for fools, because no matter how good it was, it wouldn't help a man who was about to lose his life. Logan, in turn, was very interested in this item and sat praying that no one would offer more. The first bid came in at 10 million, and at the same second Grace raised it to 20 million. The situation was getting very heated, and it seemed this girl just had endless money. Taking control of himself, Logan raised his number and increased the bid to 30 million, and the guy hadn't felt this kind of jitters in a long time. Girl thought for a moment, then raised her number and declared a mind-blowing amount of 50 million, probably the largest bid in the history of this establishment. Logan apparently got into full gambling mode because he raised the bid another 30 million, making the price of this herbal drug 80 million. Grace was already grinding her teeth, probably never imagining it could go this far, and raising her number she shrieked out 100 million. Was this really the end? Noah was speechless when he heard the figure and couldn't close his mouth, because he would never understand the rich and how they could give so much money for a plant. It was time to accept defeat because this girl was determined and wouldn't be stopped by the Sun family, and further bidding would only lead to giving in, which was unfortunately the case. Suddenly, the grandfather of this rich lady became very unwell, apparently too nervous from such large sums which his condition couldn't handle, and it was now down to minutes. Even if they started preparing the medicine now, they couldn't make it in time, a vicious circle where the medicine existed, but there was no time to prepare it. What to do in such a situation? Since hope was the last to go, the lady made sure to complete the transaction as quickly as possible and start preparing the medicine just in case everything worked out. Logan couldn't sit idly by and ran down to the stage, grabbed the girl's hand, and told her that if she didn't want her grandfather to get hurt, she had to stop right now. Of course, she didn't believe him and pulled her hand back, for how could she trust a stranger in such a situation? Then some man came up to the group, apparently an acquaintance of Grace's, and after a brief conversation with Logan, he realized the guy could be trusted and started explaining this to the singer, since a man who knew nothing about traditional medicine wouldn't be here, and besides there was no other choice, so she had to trust this guy. Due to hopelessness, the girl finally agreed that if Logan managed to save her grandfather, she would do anything for him, and in that case he immediately asked to be given this ginseng. Everything should work out in the best possible way,